Oh, great. Okay, so let us get started.
Recorded and or transcribed.
Very good. Thank you. Okay, well, good afternoon, everyone. I imagine we may have some folks joining us as we get going here. My name is Mike Flynn. For those of you who maybe not know me or my face, I've been helping OSIM on the data inventory work. So today's call is on the data call related to the research data proof of concept effort. And today is a unique call. It's really a question and answer call focused on this effort. This is the time we normally have the work group that developed this together. So we have on the line folks from the work group as well as managers from across ORD that were invited to this call. So to save time, we're not going to go around the horn to sort of have everyone go through introductions, but we're going to kick this off. Today, essentially, we're going to have a very brief overview by Alex Matteo, and he is just going to kind of hit some highlights, and then really we're going to launch into a Q&A session, which Alex and I will run, and we'll talk about those in a moment. Let me turn to Alex with some opening remarks. Alex?
Yeah, hi, good afternoon, everyone. I hope you can hear well on the computer. This is a loaner laptop, and I just got it set up. So you're my first call on this particular device. So hopefully everything goes well. No, I just
fabulous as always, Alex.
Just want to thank the data inventory work group and the IMAB for their support in this endeavor to document and inventory ORD research data assets. It's been a long journey, but we successfully deployed the data catalog on the 15th of November. And at the moment, what we're doing is preparing to receive the metadata records and inputs that the centers are putting together. So we were asked to open up a Q&A with first-line supervisors based on some questions and concerns. And today what we'd like to do is a round robin like Mike had indicated. And so with that, just welcome, and we look forward to hearing your questions. If I can't answer them here, I will, we'll have them jotted down and we'll get back to you or everyone after the call. So with that, Mike? You're on mute, Mike.
The first thing is when you talk, you should take yourself off mute. So, okay, so just one more minute on how we're going to do today. Just to kind of organize the flow here, we are going to go, as Alex said, a round robin down sort of through the centers. It was in the agenda, but basically this is the order: Sophia, SEM, Caesar, CCTE, and then OSAPE. We're going to follow this mainly so that we can have everybody have an opportunity to ask their questions. Obviously, some of you may have some of the similar questions, so we'll build on it as we go forward through the discussion. And as Alex said, he largely will be doing sort of the responding. I'll help sort of direct traffic. So as we go through this, the centers, if you could just flag raise your raise your hand via the application, that would be helpful, and we will kind of go through the order there. Within each center and office, it's sort of, we'll basically, I'll follow who's raised their hand first, but if you all want to have some particular order, somebody go first, that's fine too. So it's from your particular center. So with that, so let us get going. And I know a number of you had, for a couple centers, there was questions already raised through some dialogue with Alex already, but we're just going to jump right into